Well, this is the truth behind the Diddy, Mase, Big L, and Camron situation. And nobody wanted to sign Cam. That's what's strange about it. And the reason why is they just didn't think he was a strong rapper. Now, this is crazy because every little instance that happened in this situation could have changed the spectrum of everything. Biggie would have probably hadn't been thought of, or probably would have been signed, or probably would have never gotten discovered by Puffy had he gotten Big L. Puffy wanted Big L when he was with Andre Harrell. And he was like, we got to get this kid right here, this is it. You know, we gotta sign him. Now, Big L lyrically was ahead of his time. The Harlem MC from Dame was managing them early. They were Children of the Corner, which ended up becoming Children of the Corn. And they had Big L, Mase, Murder Mase, and Killer Cam. And a couple other guys in there. Bloodshed, I think it was Cam's cousin or a friend, and about a couple more guys. But all of these guys all rapping together in the group. And you know, people send their demos in, their tapes, and you know, you got people saying, pay attention to this guy. So once Large Professor started, you know, making, and Lord, I mean not Large Professor, but Lord Finesse started paying attention to what was going on in the game with Big L, he was like, you know, this dude is sick. I need to be trying to work with him. And I heard Big L for the first time on Represent. That's when I first heard him. On Showbiz and AG, Runaway Slave. So all of a sudden, you had Diddy who's paying attention to this because he's got his eye, you know, on the ball. And Andre Harrell, he's more into the R&B artists. You know, Heavy D was like his, at Uptown, was like his big discovery, you know, letting Heavy D run the show, and, you know, really, he could play the background and worry about other things like his R&B world, where Diddy was more looking into the rap artists who could transcend into like a pop rap artist like LL Cool J type of mainstream. But he also wanted to, you know, bring back, you know, hip hop and get that East Coast artist that people gonna relate to in the streets. He wanted that. And at that time, the artist he looked at and he thought was worth it was Big L. He heard the Children of the Corn tape, he heard another mixtape, and people were buzzing about Big L. And he heard his voice, everything about Big L, and it was all about, I gotta get him signed. And then when Andre Harrell and everybody else kind of, you know, they drugged their feet a little bit, and Columbia already was having a package deal done and put together, you know, he's already being conditioned. So it just made sense for him to go to Columbia. But Diddy couldn't sign him, and he was a little upset about that. And this situation basically ended up creating the branch off of Bad Boy of, I'm not finna bring Biggie over here. And when they, you know, that's when Andre Harrell ended up firing him, because he was disgruntled anyway, because Diddy was not, he was ready to run his own ship. He knew what he needed to do to run a company or a business or a rap label. He knew how to run it. All he needed to do was have the capital put up for him. And Clive did all that for him and said, You go and do your own thing. And it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And when Andre Harrell fired him, it was the best thing that ever happened. It's like, okay, and now I'm fired. Okay, I was working on bringing Biggie in here, and now I'm fired because I'm expressing like this is the direction. I'm trying to get you to hear me. You don't hear me? Fine, no problem. He goes ahead, gets Biggie, gets Clive to fund his label, and once it was up and running, Bad Boy Records was born, and the hits, Biggie and Craig Mack ended up being his artists. He went and found Craig Mack, and that turned out to be a success, you know. And once everything was a hit, Bad Boy went in the direction it did, Camron was still around. Him and Mase Murder, they were making tapes, you know, talking Harlem World. You know, Big L went to making records, and they was like, okay, he's making records, you know, we sitting around, you know, trying to get on. So they still working on their craft, trying to get better. Cam making more tapes with me. And then Mase's sister, who was rapping at the time, and she knew Kuda Love, who knew Biggie. And Kuda went and got a mixtape. Mase had made a mixtape with him and Cam on it, and it was Mase, Murder Mase on there. And Biggie heard Mase flow, and he loved the whole voice, everything. Well, you know about doing that shit, but everybody said, well, everybody, he was like, oh, okay. This dude, I like his delivery. He's like, he's smooth, you know, he's slow flow. So Big was like, yeah, dude ill. He liked the wordplay, everything. So he told Puff, like, yeah, get him, sign him. Like, he heard the locks, he said, oh, sign him, right off the bat. He's like, you better sign him. So that's how that got done. They were in, Jermaine Dupri was interested in signing what's his name too. So Big Diddy beat him to the punch and met him at the Hard Rock Cafe. Like, okay, go ahead and perform for me. And Mase went up there and laced it. And when he laced it, it was all said and done. He signed him to a $250,000 contract or whatever, and it was done. Mase was arrived, and here it comes. And he basically was, you know, writing and standing in the background, and then they did Can't Hold Me Down, and people think that Mase blew up once Biggie died. That's not true. Can't Hold Me Down, before any Biggie single was out. Can't Hold Me Down from Puff Daddy and the Family was already out and burning up the charts before Hypnotize even dropped. Biggie's in the video for Can't Hold Me Down. Can't Hold Me Down was like the #1 song for like, I don't know how many weeks. But anyway, while all of this is going on, Camron is still hanging around, and nobody wanted to sign Cam. So Cam goes ahead and he has to wait, and he's sitting around like, okay, my man's gonna make it, so I'm gonna be all right, and we're gonna be good because Mase is my man. He's gonna look out for me. You know, Big L just came in, did a couple of joints, and left us. You know, but we're gonna be all right because Mase is gonna get us in. And that's one thing Mase did. Mase didn't have to go back and get Cam and say, you know, make sure Cam Killer's alright. And, you know, we gonna be good. Because tragedy happened. Big died on March 9th. Cam's cousin, best friend, or bloodshed, they member from Children of the Corn, died March 2nd. Like 7 days, a week before Biggie died. So Cam's already messed up, and then this happened with Biggie. You know, they happened back to back. Now, everything is in limbo. And he's trying to get Dame, because Dame want to sign on to Rockefeller, but Rockefeller's not in a position right now to sign anybody. Jay-Z just put out Volume 1, didn't really do nothing, and what they thought it was going to do. So, they just got to play the waiting game now and see what happens next. Now, you got a situation where it's Big is gone. Mase blows up. His album is coming out. They use Biggie songs and have Mase in the video and Puffy, you know, doing the dancing and, you know, all the stuff they did on Can't Hold Me Down on, you know, just Mase and Puff. And they're doing the videos, dancing, more money, more problems. And everybody's anticipating Mase's debut album. And sure enough, Camron gets a deal. Finally got a deal with Epic back in '98 because his boy Un wanted to sign on the Undeas, but Biggie didn't really sign off on that. And they didn't want to take a risk just starting out with Camron. You know, a lot of people just wasn't feeling Cam. And Cam is raw to me. He has an original style. Like, it's like either you feel it or you don't, but his style is original. He's somebody I could say, like, he didn't copy off anybody else. He's being himself. And it's raw. If you hear Mase and Cam on a song together, especially if that mixtape that they had, I'm like, it was raw. So for anybody to be like, to diss it, it'd be like, what is you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Because that was dope. But to not see Cam as like one of the shining lights on there, that's kind of shocking to me. So anyway, long story short, Cam deal in '98, Big's gone, Mase is, you know, is blown up beyond anybody's imagination. And the whole '97 belonged to Bad Boy. So in '98, the Horses and Carriage thing is coming around. And here's the deal for Camron. Cam comes out, drops his, you know, they had the Horses and Carriage song they did, and they're going to do the video that him and Mase had to dispute over the money. And that led to a, you know, like, I'm not dealing with him and he ain't appear in the video. He's my man, he's supposed to do it for free. Long story short, the album Confessions of Fire didn't do what they hoped at Epic. So his second album, which was just unbelievable, I thought that Sex, Drugs, and Entertainment was, I mean, not Sex, Sports, Drugs, and Entertainment, my bad. That was the best album to me that he's probably made. And that came out in like 2000. So I was like, man, this album is hot. But at that time, it just got overlooked for some reason. I still don't understand. But this was, it had better production. Un was one of the producers, and Un was still behind the project, you know, dealing with Cam, as he was trying to move Cam on that label. But he was working on his own thing so that Cam could be free. But this was Cam's breakout album. And man, he came out with, when he had Dutch and Spade on there. And then Un had just had the situation with Jay-Z, the stabbing incident. And Un was on the song The Double Up, but they replaced it on the album version and put Jules Santana in it. Un was on there whispering during the original Double Up. And everybody was like, that's dope, he's rapping and whispering. Like the whole verse he's whispering, and I'm like, Un don't rap. And Un was just whispering through the whole track. And then, you know, for his verse, and everybody thought that was dope. But when the album came out, they took that off, and that Jules Santana just spit around on it. But Double Up was my song. I'm like, this album was so outstanding, I thought it should have sold 3 million records off the jump. But, you know, it's different times. You know, he wasn't into the techno pop, and, you know, and all that Swiss beat sounds, and, you know, he was still in the old 96 type, you know, Trackmasters type stuff. And, you know, when you got Dame Grease and all those guys in there, you know, it's that era. So anyway, things get a little hot, you know, and since things got a little, you know, heated at the time, what I mean heated is that Cam and Epic parted ways. He didn't like the way they did him and didn't give him like any support on the album and push the record and everything else, because their whole thing was based on, we gave you the deal because we thought Mase was going to be on the record. Mase is hot. Mase is your friend. Mase is going to be on all over the records. Now you're not seeing eye to eye with Mase. Now we stuck with Camron without a Mase. You know, it feel like we've been scammed. So the record label was like, who's all these guys? You know, like, we don't, you know, I don't know who these people are. We paying all these appearances for these people, but there's no Mase. We have nothing to sell here. So that's how the record label, like, we're not putting up no more money for this. We did 2 videos. That's all we doing. We did our part. You know, nobody's buying the record. So, I mean, it had some success. It just was no second single to really keep it going. Like, no real commercial joint that they could use to keep it going. It was just a street record. And I thought, great job for Cam. Then he got signed to Entertainment, and that didn't go anywhere because Un didn't know how to run a record company. So he went over to Jay-Z and Rockefeller Records with Dame, because Entertainment just fell to pieces. He had $60 million, Un did. That was part of his deal he got. $60 million for Entertainment. And everybody's like, man, that's a record deal. He got $60 million. But it came with incentives. If he didn't reach certain incentives in the contract, certain monies would go back to the company. It's not like it's like, here's $60 million, go ahead and do it. He had a credit line of up to $60 million that he could use. But if they not seeing certain revenues come in, they can take back from the company. You know, you could lose that credit line. They need to see revenue coming in. And they weren't seeing the revenue coming in. They were seeing all this other stuff happening, but no revenue. So that's why he went to Dame, did Come Home With Me. And of course from there, the rest of y'all know that. So Old Boy and everything else. So there's no need to go further. Now you're fully caught up. You're fully caught up with what's going on. So there's no need to go down that road. So we can stop this now. I'm done.